figure out where I need, you know, what's good, what's bad, maybe where we can improve on the process and that type of thing. So, all right, so let me move this out of the way. Yeah. So you look good over there either. Put it over there. There we go. That works. All right. So basics about the program. So the full-time program, you know, normally when we're in class, it's structured on a Monday, Wednesday, and Friday schedule. The program, if you're doing it full-time, takes 2 semesters. And again, normally during normal times, we would be here Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And it used to be like when I went through the program in 01, 02, and back in those days, we were there like those 3 days, like 9 to 5. It was a full day thing, and you just, that's what you banked on. Probably about 10 years ago or so, we switched over and made everything hybrid. Almost all of the classes are hybrid. So what used to be a 3-hour class, and each class only meets once a week, but what used to be a 3-hour class now got cut down to an hour and a half. So half was in the classroom, and we would take lessons and put them online. So it made it much, it made the amount of time, the commitment that you had to be at school much less. Like I said, my day was 9 to 5. Currently, it's Mondays, noon to 3. Wednesdays are the longer days. Wednesdays are 10 to 4 or 10 to 5, depending on if you're in lab or field experience. I'll explain that just a bit. And then Fridays were 9 to noon. So it made the time much, much less. So part-time is in the evening, and this can take, and this is based on your preference. If you're doing the program part-time, it can take anywhere from a year. If you start in January, even if you start in September, you could be done by the following December. The classes, we have a full offering of classes in the evening, and a lot of students do that. They go, look, I work during the day, so I'll take the classes in the evening. And those classes meet, again, once a week. So normally you're at the school anywhere from 1 to 3 evenings a week, depending on how many classes you're taking. And that can take anywhere from 1 to 2.5 years, depending on how many classes you want to take per semester. And again, those evening classes, just like the day classes, they're all the same. They're all blended. They all work the same way. We do have a full-time, quote unquote, full-time evening program that starts in January and it finishes in December of that same calendar year. So there's a lot of different ways you can approach this. Now, okay, so this year, we'll move this again over there. There we go. So this year, because of COVID-19, almost all of our classes are going to be offered via distance. The state has basically asked us to not have anybody on campus as much as humanly possible. The school overall is allowing for, I think, 13% of classes to be offered actually at the school, meaning that those are hybrid classes. They won't let classes meet fully at the school. 2 of our classes fit this criteria. FUN 251 and 227. What that is a bombing lab, which is on Wednesday afternoons, and 227 is restorative art. That's a class you'll take in your last semester. So that's not something that would really affect most of you. But that class in restorative art, that's one of the classes where you labs, where you make, you rebuild ears, and rebuild noses, you make it all out of wax, and rebuild a mouth, that type of thing. All those labs will actually be at the campus. But like I said, that shouldn't affect any of you because that's a class that you take in your last semester. So the classes this coming semester in the fall are going to be offered via Zoom and Collaborate, just depending on the instructor's preference. I like Zoom. I like the interface. I'm moving off of this just a little bit there. All right, so I like the interface of it. I know Professor Aldejuice, who's the other full-time faculty member in the program, I know she prefers Collaborate. They all, I mean, as far as from your standpoint, it should be the same either way. It's just you'll get a link and you go to that link. And we do the classes that way. We've found that we are able to mold the classes to work. We're having some pretty good success with it. And, you know, as this COVID thing calms down, hopefully in the spring, we'll be back to normal. You know, and again, who knows what tomorrow will bring. But for the meantime, that's what we're shooting for. In the fall, though, everything will be offered distance except for lab. And that'll be hybrid, where all of our lessons, like I have lessons on OSHA for that class. I teach in bombing lab. I have lessons for OSHA and regulated medical waste and a whole bunch of other things. And all that stuff, there'll be certain weeks that we're just meeting online. and there'll be other weeks where we'll actually be at the school, and we just need to figure out, we're going to figure out the particulars when we get to the fall. So these classes, there's a distinction to be made here. These classes are quote unquote distance. They're not considered quote online. And the difference between that, I'm still cutting us off. The difference between that is an online class is you just go to it whenever you feel like, 2 a.m. you go, oh, I'm going to do that classwork. These classes are not like that. These classes still meet at their normal time. So you're expected to quote unquote be in class at the normal time of class, like intro to funeral service, for example. I know I teach that in the fall, and that'll be Mondays, noon to 1:30 or 1:20. We'll actually be meeting noon to 1:20, but we'll just be doing it via Zoom rather than in the classroom itself. Like I said, I know there will be questions about that going forward. We're still figuring some of the stuff out. The online learning system that we use is Blackboard, and some of you may be familiar with Blackboard. I think Blackboard has its pluses and its minuses, but we're making it work, so there will be lessons on Blackboard, as well as ones that we actually meet face-to-face via the Zoom or Collaborate or whatever that particular instructor is using. All right, so the Funeral Service Program Handbook, this tells you anything you ever want to know about the program. It outlines in detail basically everything, all of our policies, and most of them I'll go over here tonight. Most of our policy, all of our policies, it has a lot of good information in there. That's a good thing to hold on to. You should have gotten it digitally. Just save a copy to your computer, and it's a lot of questions that may come up later on. All of the answers are in there, and I'll go through that handbook with you real quickly while we're all meeting. So one of the first questions I get is about the different degrees. There are 3 degrees offered by the program. The prep degree, which none of you, I don't think any of you are doing. The prep degree is designed for students that don't have any college credit. The state of New Jersey and Pennsylvania require 2 years of schooling prior to funeral service education. So we put together the prep degree to fulfill that. And that's just an option. Some students come in, they go, look, I want to do the prep degree and get that, it's an associate in business. Other students go, look, I'll just do my 60 credits at my school, whatever. And either way, it's perfectly fine. What we'll be looking at is the funeral service certificate and the associate in applied science and funeral service. Now, everybody takes the same classes, whatever, it's all for the funeral service program, and it's all to get licensed, and the funeral service certificate is all that you need to get licensed. If you have the right classes in your academic background, we will package them up, and you'll also get an associate degree. Some students already had, like I know I had a master's when I did the program, so I really didn't need associates, but I got it anyway. It didn't cost anything. It was just an extra degree to throw up on the wall, So if you have the prerequisites plus a mathematics class somewhere in your background, if you already have a degree, an associate or a bachelor's, if you have a gen ed somewhere in your background, like a humanities, or with that degree, the last requirement for this is a HPE class, which is health and phys ed, like 2 credits in that. That requirement gets waived if you already have a degree. So if you have in your background a mathematics, a gen ed, and an HPE, or already had finished degree, you'll get the associates as well. And this is something we'll work out with you individually as we go through. As we're wrapping things up, when you get into your last semester, it's normal when we start looking at that and going, okay, well, what are you going to end up with? And if you end up with just a certificate, it doesn't matter. That's all you need to get licensed in New Jersey or Pennsylvania. If you're in Delaware, you do need the associate degree or an associate degree before you do our program. Like I said, I'll work all that stuff out with you individually. So New Jersey and Pennsylvania requirements. Both require 60 college credits prior to funeral service education. This is something that's in the law in both states. It has nothing to do with us. It's just the State Board of Mortuary Science in New Jersey and the State Board of Funeral Directors in Pennsylvania decided this was a requirement. That's sort of a steep requirement. Most states are not like that, meaning that once you get licensed in either New Jersey or Pennsylvania, it's relatively easy to get licensed in other states. New Jersey, going from New Jersey to Pennsylvania is very easy. Pennsylvania to New Jersey is a little bit trickier just because of the requirements in the internship. But regardless, once you get that license, it is relatively easy to get a license in Delaware, New York, or Maryland, or wherever. And New Jersey in particular is sort of the gold standard for most states, with the exception of Ohio. I want to say Minnesota and Connecticut, which require a bachelor's degree. Now, to prove that you have the 60 credits, that's done through the Department of Education. Pennsylvania, and this is in both states, Pennsylvania issues a pre-professional educational certificate, and in New Jersey, there's a New Jersey academic qualifying certificate, which they make this unnecessarily complicated. They call it an academic qualifying certificate, but they also call it a mortuary qualifying certificate. It's the same thing, but they gave it two names for some reason. I don't know why New Jersey did that. So that AQC or that MQC has to be issued at some point. And likewise in Pennsylvania, you have to get that pre-professional educational certificate. This has to be done before the practical exam can be done in either state. This is something that is completely outside of our hands. We don't have anything to do with this. This is directly between you and the state that you're in. And we mention it now because when you go to get registered as an intern in New Jersey or as a student trainee in Pennsylvania, this is something that you need to get done. The process can take up to 6 months to get done. And we mention it now, and this is really something to make a note of, because I've had students that have gotten through everything. They'll let you do everything else. You know, they've gotten through our program, they've taken the national board exam, they've taken the state exam, and then they go take the practical, and they go, yeah, no, you don't have an AQC. And it's like, oh, great. And now they're sitting out for 6 months because they didn't file this paperwork. This is a real easy thing to forget about. So don't procrastinate on this. If you have an internship, make sure to look into this right away. And if you get it if you don't have an internship, when you do, look into this, you know, either the AQC in New Jersey or the pre-professional educational certificate in Pennsylvania.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
Who's first?
It's okay. You can go, Carrie.
Okay, thank you. So I'm currently serving my internship right now, and it expires December 11th of this year. So this is something that I should get now.
Oh, are you in New Jersey or Pennsylvania?
New Jersey.
New Jersey. This is absolutely something you should get now. There's a website, and I'll show you the website. It's actually on one of my slides.
Okay.
So yeah, absolutely. Now, your internship, I'm guessing you're coming up on 2 years of having the internship in December?
Yes.
And they'll give you the third year without issue. Just send them you'll need to send them a letter requesting the additional year. And that's something you can do now. And you don't want to wait until December to do that. I would say you'll have that into them for the October meeting of the state board at the latest, you know, and just to get that extension.
Okay, because I think they're going to have to extend it anyway because it's required 75 embalmings, and because of the coronavirus, I haven't met that, and it's been difficult to meet that.
Sure, and they've been pretty good about the whole craziness that came with coronavirus, because New Jersey was really hard hit on this thing. So yeah, they'll absolutely give you an extension on that, and they should give you an extension even if you need that additional year. If you get to December, you said December 11th of 2021, they should give you an additional 3 or 6 months to get through the rest of it, especially just because of the craziness of what we're going through now with the pandemic.
Okay, thank you.
Good thing. Does somebody else have a question? I heard somebody else chime in, but.
Yeah, I did. So it doesn't matter. It just matters where the internship is, correct? Not where I actually live, because I live in Pennsylvania, but I'm doing an internship in New Jersey. So I still apply for the AQC versus the MQC. Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. It's wherever you're getting licensed.
Okay.
Since you're getting licensed in New Jersey, you would want to get the AQC.
Okay, great.
And that's good that you're doing New Jersey, because again, like I said, you can go from New Jersey to Pennsylvania very quickly. And I'll go through the licensing requirements here in just a bit. Whereas
I'm going to do both, so I would have to do both anyway, but.
No, and it's good. If you do New Jersey first, you'll be able to get the Pennsylvania license right away. Like, I got licensed in Pennsylvania before anybody that I was in school with, who was, somebody just raised their hand. Give me 1 second here to figure this out. Before anybody that I was in school with who was in Pennsylvania because of the way their internship is structured.
Right.
So I had Fallon raise her hand. So Fallon, I'm not sure if you want to either chime in or if you want to send me a message on the chat. That's
I just had a question in regards to the AQC.
Sure.
Is that required regardless of prior education?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, it's even if you have a doctorate, let's say,
Okay.
The state just needs to prove that you have that 60 credits to meet that statute. And
I have another question.
sure, go ahead.
So if I'm transferring from Ocean County College here in Toms River to Mercer for the fall, and I already have my 60 credits, I'll have an associate's in science. Were you saying that in addition to that, you'll get an associate's in funeral services?
Yeah. If you have if you already have a degree, if you have a mathematics, and if you have a gen ed, then yeah, you should get the associates as well. And like I said, it doesn't cost you anything. You don't have to pay anything additional for it. It's just you have what you need for it, so they'll issue that as well.
Okay, cool.
It doesn't matter like what school you get it from, right? Like I have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice from Temple.
No, it doesn't matter at all. It's just if you have those classes, we'll transfer them into Mercer, package that all up, and go, okay, you get an associate's now as well.
All right, and then we just worry about that the last semester, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's not even really something you need to worry about. If you already have the classes, it should just automatically happen. You know,
Okay.
It's when we're transferring, when Janine handles all the paperwork, and again, normally I would have Janine with us, in this if we were doing orientation, but Janine is the heart of the program. She gets all the stuff done. So as the transcripts come into us, she processes them all and pulls out the proper classes, and then those go into your Mercer transcript. And then when you go to graduate, it just automatically happens.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so I'm going to mute everybody again. There we go. All right, so let me get back to it. Let me get back to this. Oh, wait, let me close that. All right, so again, AQC, pre-professional education certificate, very important. Like I said, I will. Why is this not transfer? Why is this not moving? There we go. All right, so the prerequisites to the program, they are English 1 and English 2, and if you don't have English 1 and English 2, I know I've seen degrees where students, for whatever reason, the college doesn't require English 1 and 2. So long as we can find something that qualifies as an English, we try and take it. Worst case scenario, there is the CLEP exam, which is, it's an acronym. It's like college level exam preparation, I'm going to say, but I'm sure that's not right. Basically, you could take a test and the school will give you English 1 and 2 for that. Psychology, which is just your basic psych. Business law, accounting, chemistry, which is just a 3-credit chemistry. And if you have a 4-credit with a lab, that's fine. Not every school offers a 3-credit non-lab chemistry, but we just need you to have that foundation there in chem, specifically for embalming 2, where we get into embalming chemistry and how the chemicals work and what happens at a molecular level and all this other really interesting stuff. But we just need you to have that foundation. And then human anatomy, or anatomy and physiology 1 and 2. So human anatomy is what the requirement is anatomy and physiology 1 and 2. Mercer has a class called human anatomy, which is a 4-credit class. It's Bio 106, the number for it. That class, the program looked at it a number of years ago and said, okay, human anatomy is basically an amalgam of A&P 1 and 2, and it gives you everything you need for the foundation at Mercer. Other schools offer human anatomy, or we found classes there that qualify as it, but not every other school does. So if you don't have the anatomy and physiology, talk to me about that. That's something that it's really crucial to have. Because when we get into pathology, when we get into micro, when we get into restorative art even, you need to have that foundation there. Now, these had to be completed before the program has started. And I've had situations where I've had students that maybe they're just missing accounting or something. And I try and work with them to incorporate that. But it's best to have all this stuff done and out of the way. Okay, so New Jersey licensing requirements. So somebody mentioned this earlier. I think maybe Carrie mentioned that she was working on her 75 bombings. Basically, New Jersey says to get licensed, the educational requirements, which is what we give, plus the internship. The internship can be started at any point. You don't have to wait till you're in funeral service classes. If you have a funeral home, get registered right away. And then the exams. We'll talk about the exams in a minute. So the internship by default is 2 years. Regardless of your educational background, you get registered with the state board, and the card that you get will say a 2-year internship on it. It can be done concurrently with the schooling, and you need 90 credits excuse me, if you have 90 plus credits prior to funeral service education, that minimum of the internship drops down to 1 year. So 90 credits, essentially 3 years of schooling. If you have a bachelor's degree, or even if you just didn't complete a bachelor's, but for whatever reason you have 90 plus credits prior to funeral service, then the internship, the length of it can be dropped down to 1 year from 2 years. But you can take up to 3 years if necessary. During that time, again, it's concurrent with schooling. You have to do 75 funerals, 75 embalmings, and 25 sets of funeral arrangements. And 25 sets of funeral arrangements is new. When I was a student, that didn't exist. The testing is the national board exam, and it's a brutal test. It's got 2 halves. It's the arts and the sciences. You can take them on separate days. They don't have to be done at the, like I said, at the same on the same day. And we'll talk about this a lot when you're in the program. I always say it's best to do whatever you're better at. If you're more comfortable with the arts, take that first and do that on a single day. If you're more comfortable with the sciences, do that one first. I've seen students that they go in, they take both tests, they fail the first one. Then when they're taking the second one, they're not thinking about the second one, they're thinking about the first one, and then they end up not passing the second one. It's a pretty tough test, but we will prepare you for it. There's the jurisprudence exam, and the JP exam is all the laws of the state of New Jersey as far as funeral directing is concerned. There's a million of them, but we will prep you for that, and that's given at Mercer County Community College. The program has nothing to do with that. The state board has a contract with the school just because we are geographically center in the state. They figured it was best to give it there. And then once everything else is done, once you have the national boarding done, the jurisprudence exam done, you have 75, 75, and 25 done, you finish your schooling, and you're within 3 months of completing the internship, you can then register for the practical exam. And the practical exams, they come to the funeral home where you're working and they watch you embalm someone. I think that's the easiest of the 3 tests, but I think it's by far the most stressful just because it's hard to have somebody standing on your shoulder while you're embalming. Okay, so Pennsylvania, their licensing requirements are a little bit different. There's the educational requirements plus the internship and the exams. So just like New Jersey, they require that 60 credits prior to funeral service education. And there's a resident internship, and this is 12 months following funeral service education. So after you finish the program, that's when you can register as a resident internship, and that's 12 months. It's 1 full year following the schooling. During that time, you have to do 35 case histories, and it's apparently submitted online now. And a case history is you do everything on a funeral. You make the arrangements, do the embalming, you oversee the funeral, and you would write that up and you send that in. You have to do 35 during that year. While you're in school, you can register as a student/funeral trainee. And here again, just like the AQC, MQC thing, that academic qualifying certificate or mortuary qualifying certificate, Pennsylvania gave 2 names for this. Sometimes they call it a student trainee, sometimes they call it a funeral trainee. I don't know why. This is while you're in school. You would register as a funeral student trainee while in the funeral service education program. This allows for exposure to embalming, etc. This is weird. You have to register through the school. I don't know why they do it this way, but they send all your paperwork to us for some reason. But this allows you legally to take part in embalmings. This is where it gets a little weird. If you call the state board, and if you ask them, may I embalm the funeral home where I'm working, they'll tell you no. They're wrong. We had to clarify this a few years back. We actually had to write to the Attorney General in Pennsylvania and have them look into it, and they clarified it for us. They said there'd be no reason to have a student traineeship if you weren't allowed to be taking part in the embalmings and funeral and everything else at the funeral home. So you're absolutely allowed to do that. And if there's any question that I've had preceptors call me and go, what am I allowed to do? What am I not allowed to do? I'm always happy to send that letter out to them. I've got a copy of it. I can send it out to them. It says clear as day. Look, yes, you're allowed to do embalmings. Just like New Jersey, there's the testing, there's the national board exam, which again is not administered by us. That's given by the International Conference of Funeral Service Examining Boards. They're based out of Arkansas, I believe. It's given at Pearson View testing centers. And like I said, all we do is we clear you to take it, and you arrange that completely on your own. You can take that at any time after you finish the program. And I'll beat this drum constantly. Take it as soon as humanly possible. Likewise, there's also the Pennsylvania jurisprudence exam, which is given testing centers throughout the state. Again, something to schedule on your own. I don't think PA is as difficult as Jersey, but it's still, you got to study for it. And then there's a written practical exam. So instead of actually having somebody watching you embalm, you take a test about embalming. And again, something we'll prep you for during the program. No questions. So when you go to get registered as an intern, whether in New Jersey or Pennsylvania, they ask you the questions. It says, please certify under penalty of perjury the following. Do you currently have a child support obligation? Have you failed to respond to a subpoena relating to either paternal or child support proceedings? Are you subject to the child support arrest warrant? In accordance, and this is in New Jersey, but Pennsylvania asks something very similar. In accordance with New Jersey statutes annotated 2A 17, blah, 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 blah. An answer of yes to any of the questions may result in denial of license. Furthermore, a false certification of the above may subject you to a penalty, including but not limited to immediate revocation or suspension of license or certification. And then it goes on. Let me move this so I can see. Have you ever been summoned, arrested, taken into custody, indicted, tried, charged, but admitted into pretrial intervention or pled guilty to any violation of law, ordinance, felony, misdemeanor, or disorderly persons offense in New Jersey, any other state, district, Columbia, or any other jurisdiction? Parking or speeding violations need not be disclosed, but motor vehicle violations such as a DUI must be. Have you ever been convicted of a crime or offense under any circumstances, include, it goes on and on and on and on. If yes, provide a copy of the judgment of conviction and the release from parole or probation. Please provide a complete explanation. Do you currently hold, or have you ever held a professional or occupational license or certificate of any kind in New Jersey or any other state? And there's a little bit more to that. I cut it down a little bit. I mention this now because if you have some sort of a criminal history, and I've had students, I've had students, and it has always shocked me. I had one student who was, I was impressed with what a good student he was, and he was he just really struck me as a great guy. And he came down to the office one day and said, hey, can I talk to him in private? I said, yeah. And he said, I used to be a teacher. And I was like, ooh, this is not going someplace good. And apparently this guy was a teacher, and he was arrested for having a sexual relationship with a student. Now, the student was a senior in high school, and she was over 18. Not that that makes it good. It's bad any way you cut it, but it wasn't like a sixth grader or something, But, he was like, do you think I'll be able to get licensed? And I was like, no, I don't. I really did not think he was going to be able to get licensed. He actually went and before the board, and they had this whole, hearing about it, and he went in and made this very passionate plea that, look, I screwed up in life and made some awful mistakes, but what am I supposed to do, work in a liquor store for the rest of my life? And they actually saw it this way and allowed him to get licensed. I had another student who came in, again, super wonderful lady, really just top of the class and everything. She was involved in a double homicide. So you just never know what somebody's background is. So we mention this because if you haven't gone through this process yet, you haven't gotten registered, we don't want you to get halfway through the program and go, oh, I was a bank robber for 10 years. And, it looks like I wasted all the money and time. If you do have some sort of a criminal history, you have to admit it to the board. If you cover it up and they find out about it later, they will revoke your ability to get a license ever. This happened. We had another student. This was before I was the program director, who he did not tell them he had a criminal background. He was apparently a registered sex offender. And the reason was weird. He was in college, and he got drunk and went streaking somewhere. And when they wrote him up, they wrote it up as a sexual offense. And he hid it because he was embarrassed. And the state found out about it. To this day, I don't know how the state found out about it. They actually came down and took the file from the school and investigated all the stuff. And they told him you can just never get licensed. They were like, hang up, call it a day, because he hid the information. It's one of those things that, like I said, we've had many students that have had some sort of blemish in their criminal history, and if you have something in your background, it's not a big deal. I don't need to know about it, but you need to release that information to the board. Don't try and cover it up. It's best to just take it on. Even I've had students that had dumb things like a disorderly conduct or drunk in public or something, and whatever. You send it up, they review the information. If it's something like that, you have to tell them, but they just process it through, and it's not a big deal. Even if it is like a DUI or something, it's not. They will normally just process it through, unless it is something major, like a crime of moral turpitude is what they call it, rape or murder, that type of a thing. All right, so funeral service program policies. All grades must be C or above. Let me move this over a little bit. There we go. There we go. All right, so all grades must be C or above, and a C in the program is 75. Anything below is 74, then it doesn't work. If you get a 74 in a class, like for your final grade, you have to repeat that class. With repeating courses, and hopefully this is a non-factor, hopefully everybody goes through and you don't have to repeat anything. If the program will allow you to repeat a class twice, if for whatever reason you have to take it a third time, you have to get the authorization of the dean. You need to meet with the dean of the division. The dean of the division currently is Dr. Farah Banani, and she's, I think, a little more relaxed than this. Previously, when Dr. Maddox was here, Dr. Winston Maddox, when he was running the division, his father was a funeral director, so he took this program extremely seriously, and he was real tough on students when they needed to repeat for a third time. He normally let them, but he took it very seriously. So incomplete grades. There are certain classes, specifically field experience and embalming lab. These have external requirements to them, meaning that in those classes you have to do so many embalmings, so many work so many funerals, do so many funeral arrangements, because of the quirky nature of funeral service, in that there are times you're very busy and times you're very slow. If you get to the end of either of those classes and you have not completed all of the extramural work, all of the work that's done off-site, you can get an incomplete for the class, and you're given an additional semester to finish that work. But at the end of that semester, that grade would flip from an I to an F, and it's real hard to switch that back at that point. It's something that needs to be approved by the vice president of the college. It's just, they normally do not approve it. And again, hopefully this won't affect anybody, but it's just stuff that we need to tell you. So the test, most instructors, and this varies by instructors, most don't give makeup exams. They want you to take that test in that amount of time. What we're doing now is the tests are being given on Blackboard, and we have to use that honor lock system, which is sort of a pain, but we have to do it because our accreditor says you can't have unproctored exams. And it's, you know, it's like a software that basically watches you take the test. You have to spin the computer around, show the whole room. You have to show them some ID, and then somebody watches you take that exam. When we are normally at the school, the way I normally give my tests is in the testing center, and I normally go, okay, you have a week to take the thing. So we give you a full week. So it's a situation where, you know, and that's what I'm doing with the testing online as well. Like the test goes active Monday at noon, and it's active until the following Monday at noon. Because of that, I normally won't give makeup exams just because there's so much time given for it. I mean, if there's some sort of a emergency situation, which happens. I had a student one time that she had to take her daughter to a hospital and couldn't, you know, and I was like, yeah, it's fine. I'm not a monster, but in most cases, we want you to take that test in the allotted time. Tests are not given for students' retention. When we're in class and there's paper and pencil tests, we don't allow you to keep them. We don't allow you to take pictures of them. We have to reuse these tests, so we don't want them out. We don't want to have to rewrite them every year. It's just too time, you know, and we update them every, I'd say third year, but it's just too time consuming to do it every year. So program completion, due to the evolving nature of funeral service, the American Board of Funeral Service Education, who is our accreditor, gives 1.5 times to complete. What that means is you have to be done the program within 3 years. So 1.5 times, if it's a 2-year program, you know, or I'm sorry, excuse me, you can take up to a year and a half on it, so they extend that out to make that 3 years, saying 1.5 times the program length. So that means that, let's say you start classes and you're halfway through the program and you have to leave, and it happens. Life gets in the way sometimes, and you know, it just occurs sometimes. So if that happens, and you were gone for more than 3 years, when you return, you need to start back at the beginning. And again, hopefully this doesn't affect anybody. I hope I hope everybody's just done. You get started, you get done. But for whatever reason, if you leave, and like I said, if you're gone for 3 years or more, when you come back, you have to start back at the beginning. I just went through this with a student not too long ago who, again, nice guy, but he was out for 9 years, I think. And he came back, and I was like, you gotta go back to the beginning. And it's in the you know, the accrediting standards. It just is what it is. So NBE prep, this is the only class that's not required in the funeral service catalog. This class is National Board Exam Preparation, and it's a capstone, and we go back and we review all of the information from all of the classes. Like I said, it's not required, but it's something I highly recommend. we've seen much higher testing results when students take the class versus those who don't take the class. Like I said, that's something we'll deal with in your last semester. All right, hepatitis B vaccination. There's a form that Janine sent out to you. We need you to check off on that and send that back to us. And basically, I don't care whether you've had the Hep B vaccination or not. It doesn't make a difference to me. We bring it to your attention because by federal law, when you go to work for a funeral home, within 10 days of you starting work, they need to make the hepatitis B vaccination available to you at no cost. It's a series of 3 shots. You get one, and then it's like a month later, you get another one. Then like maybe 6 months after that, you get the third one. And again, it doesn't make a difference to me if you get it or you don't. We just need to know that you know it exists. I've had a lot of times where a student will go back to a funeral. But even when I was a student, I worked for an SCI funeral home, Service Corp International, if you're not familiar with it. It's the largest holder of funeral homes in the country. It's a corporate entity. And they forgot to offer it to me. And I came back from school. I was like, what about this hepatitis B vaccination? Like, oh yeah, and they just forgotten about it, and they really weren't trying to like, oh, we're going to save money and not offer this Hep B vaccination. It slipped their mind. So we need to know that you guys know, and then you can take that information back to the funeral home if you haven't already done so.
I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
For the hepatitis B vaccination, like say, like I already have it. So I need to send this form back to Janine with a copy of my vaccination record. Is that?
Yeah, you can send it back to her. Tell her you had the Hep B vaccination. Now the school itself has a policy on vaccinations, and they've changed that in the last year or two. So they may require that you have it, but I'm not sure. I haven't followed up with that. So yeah, and realistically, for our purposes, even if you check off that I do not wish to receive the hepatitis B vaccination, you sign off on that, that's fine too. Like I said, our purpose with this is just proving that you know that it exists.
Okay, thank you.
Sure thing. Sorry, I'm you have 2 screens going here, and all right. Good. All right. All right, registering with the state board. This has to be done to enroll in the day classes. The day classes are limited to students who are working in a funeral home for a couple of reasons. First and foremost, there's the lab and the field experience class, right? Those classes have an external element to them. Lab in particular, I can't even take anybody in there unless they're registered with the state board. Like I said, lab and field experience require that embalmings be done at a funeral and embalming observation be done. So many funerals be worked, so many funeral arrangements be made, and all that stuff. So you need the funeral home for that. We also keep the classes that way because they operate at a different pace. If you are in, and this is true of all the classes, but if you're in, for example, embalming one is the theory of embalming. And you're familiar with embalming, and you're embalming on a semi-regular basis, and you're familiar with all of the instruments, you know what a trocar is, you know, object, and you're familiar with it. It just moves much faster. You know, in the embalming one, when we offer that in the spring, in the evening time, it just takes a little bit longer to get through those concepts because many of the students may not be familiar with them. It's still a hypothetical to them. Now, if you're in New Jersey, in these classes, if you're in lab, if you're in field experience and you're doing embalmings for them and funerals, arrangements and all that stuff, that can be used for both our requirements for the class and for the state board for that 75 to 25. They don't have to be mutually exclusive. You can use them for both. So when I was talking about that AQC or pre-professional education certificate, they switched all of this over to being online now. And I don't know why, but both of them, when you go to register them, it'll be a teacher certification thing that you're looking for. So this is, and it's just weird. It throws everybody for a loop, and they look at it, they go, I'm trying to get an AQC, you know, you have to have a qualifying certificate to prove that I have the 60 credits. Why am I on a teacher certification? And I don't have an answer for that. I don't know why New Jersey did it that way, but Pennsylvania did the same thing. In Pennsylvania, it's the TIM system, and there's all this stuff like instructions for educators. You're like, wait a minute, I'm in school. But that's that. If you get to that and you're trying to do the AQC or the professional education certificate, you are in the right place. It's just they set it up odd. All right, so other requirements. If you're in the day classes and you're taking lab and field experience, we're going to need a yellow application form, and I'll show that to you. We've digitized everything this year. So We can take digital signatures on that. We don't need like DocuSign. You can just, your preceptor can just type your name into it. The Hep B survey, which we already went through, and I think I accidentally put in again. I forgot I put it in earlier. We'll need a copy of your intern card, and any more. Once you're registered with the state board, if you let us know that you're registered, we can get that offline. All that stuff is on the state board's website now. And we'll need an inspection report as well. I'll get to that inspection report in a minute. All right, so the yellow survey, the yellow application for field experience and embalming lab. This is what it looks like, and it'll be on a yellow form. Actually, I'm saying yellow. Everything is digitized now. But what this is an agreement between the funeral home and the school to allow you to do work at the funeral home and get credit for it at the school. Lab and field experience are the two classes, like I said, where you have to do embalmings and arrangements and so many funerals and that type of thing. So this is just an agreement between your preceptor and the school that you're allowed to do that, number one, and that we'll be able to come to the funeral home to watch you do an observation. Both of those classes require an embalming observation, meaning somebody will come out to watch you embalm someone, and we grade you on it. And we do this, number one, we're required to by our accreditor, but we also really do this with the intent of getting you used to somebody watching you embalm someone. In New Jersey in particular, this is not true in Pennsylvania, but in New Jersey, there's an embalming observation, and it's stressful. I remember when I did mine, I was really stressed, and you know, we want you to get used to somebody watching you embalm. We're not coming out to work against you. We're not coming out to you know, try and find your weak points. Well, I guess we're looking for weak points, but we're coming out with the express intent of trying to make you used to it, somebody watching you, and number two, to make you a better embalmer. Embalming is one of those things where it's I've always compared it to poker. You can teach somebody to play poker in probably about 10 minutes, but it takes years, if not decades, to become a really good poker player. This being said, I stink at poker. I'm awful at the game. But so we know when we come out to do these things that you are not where you're going to be in 10 years. And we all went through the process as well. All of the faculty at the college are all licensees. So they've all been through this in one manner or another. Now, this is the inspection report. And this is, again, if you're in lab or field experience, and this is something that I'll send out on the first day of those classes. Basically, this is something, if you have a funeral home, we want you to mention this to your preceptor. This is new. This is from the accreditor, the American Board of Funeral Service Education. They're the people who develop our curriculum, and they accredit us, which allows us to teach all this stuff. They came up with a policy that students can't be in an environment that has not been inspected by somebody at the school. This is not really applicable in New Jersey or Pennsylvania, because in both of the states, they both have very strict laws. Sorry, open that up. They both have very strict laws regarding funeral directing and embalming and the environment that you can be in and that type of thing. So it's you know, other parts of the country are not like that. And I want to say this was passed because of, I think it was a southern state. I think it was like Arkansas or something, where a student was working in an environment that was legitimately dangerous. There was like, from what I remember being told, there was like live power lines that were just open and exposed above the prep table. There wasn't adequate PPE. It was just a mess. So they basically, they said, you know, you need to inspect any place where there is a student. So mention this to your preceptors if you are at a funeral home. And if you're not at a funeral home, we'll worry about this when you get to one. Basically, you need to fill this out. You need to get this back to us, and then we will do an on-site inspection to verify this. Now, that on-site inspection takes about 2 minutes. We just need to verify the information that you put on there. Right now, we are allowed to do that via distance. You know, what I've been doing is just connecting with students via FaceTime or Skype or whatever their preferences, and they take their phone, they walk around, they show me everything I need to see, and then we call it a day. I mean, it only takes a short amount of time. But like I said, mention to your preceptors, because this is new, and if they went through our program, then they, you know, the first thing they say is, wait a minute, this wasn't there when I was a student. Then they don't want somebody fishing around their funeral home, and I don't blame them. But like I said, it's something that's relatively benign. We're just coming out to, you know, we've never found any major problems. You know, we're just coming out to ensure the information that you put on there is correct. We're not coming out to look for something to call the state board or OSHA or something. So, all right, so this is the hepatitis B vaccination form. This is what was emailed out to you. It's perfectly fine to just type it and send it back to us. Scholarships. There's a bunch of scholarship information out there, tons of it. Every field service organization out there has money that they give away. And the number one complaint I get from these organizations is they don't get enough applicants. That a lot of them will have these, scholarships, and they'll go 3 or 4 years without getting an applicant. And this is nothing new. When I was in school, I had a classmate who was doing a report about some field service organization, and he reached out to them to get information, and they said, hey, by the way, we have a scholarship. We haven't given it out in 9 years. He's like, really? They're like, yeah. It's like 13 grand. And he's like, yeah, he applied for it and got it. I mean, it paid for well more than his schooling. So yeah, it's a situation where if we can support you in this in any way, let us know. We're always happy to. I'm always happy to draft a letter on your behalf, or whatever the case may be. We want to see you get this money. So if you need our assistance, please reach out, and we were more than happy to. And again, there's just a little more scholarship information here. This is one of the last things here. In the field service handbook is a list of the textbooks. We give it to you ahead of time, because if you want to start purchasing them now, if you want to start trying to find them, you're welcome to. All of the syllabi are online. If you go to the school's website, every syllabus is listed with the class. So all you would need to do is, let's say you're taking Intro to Funeral Service, you go to the search icon, the search bar, you put in FUN 206, it'll come up for you. So you can find out what the textbooks are for each class that you're taking. Some of these you can take older versions of it, like this History of American Funeral Directing. That was first published in 1957. I'm not making that up. I actually have an original copy of it. It hasn't changed that much. So if you find a copy from 1990, from 1985, from 1993, whatever, right? You're normally good with it. The other ones like Embalming, History, Theory, and Practice by Bob Mayer. That one is, we are currently up to the 5th edition, and what we recommend is not going earlier than the 4th edition on that. So if you have a question about any of these, feel free to reach out. Something else I'll point out, I know it's become fashionable in the last couple of years, and it makes sense to rent textbooks. Some of these major ones you're going to want to purchase, the Embalming book in particular, the Restorative Art book, because when you go to get ready for the National Board exam, you're going to want to have those textbooks. That's where all of that stuff comes from. So it's a good idea to hold on to them. Certain ones, like the History of American Funeral Directing, maybe not so much, but like the Embalming or Restorative Art, it's always good to hold on to merchandising. These are good things to review when you go back to get ready for the National. One of the other appendixes we put in there is anatomical guides and limits. Now, the anatomical guides and limits are, I think, one of the more difficult parts of the curriculum. And this is how we locate vessels. We're not going to give you a quiz on day one, but we wanted to give you this information. I've had students who have started studying ahead of time, and you're welcome to do that. I've had other students that just close it off and go, I'll learn that when I'm in the program. That's fine too, but we just want to give you the option. If you did want to get started with it now, you're welcome to. And here's another mandatory disclosure. We have to put the passing rates for the National Board exam onto our website. All of that is listed on the website, and you're welcome to look at that. We had to put, the accreditor requires us to put all of this information up. We haven't put 2019 up because we've been locked off campus since March. We were supposed to be gone for 2 weeks, and here it is like 4 months later. We still can't get on the campus, so we haven't been able to update it. But yeah, that's it. So, all right, so questions about any of that? I know I just threw a whole lot at you there. All right, let me see here. I had this open earlier, but I had so many.
Okay, I have a question.
Sure, go right ahead.
So I'm completing college algebra right now. It's my last class, and then I graduate. So once I'm finished, I'll send the official transcript over to you or Janine?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, and then they'll tell me what classes I have to register for, right?
That's correct. What I tend to do is we're just going to have to do this on an individual basis. If you email me about classes, what I'm going to do is take a look. I started files, digital files, and everybody that I've been emailing with, and I go in, I look at it, and I say, okay, do you have the prereqs? Do you have this, that, the other thing? And that that blue application form, which really isn't blue anymore because it's digital, that outlines the prerequisites as well as the funeral home, if you're at a funeral home. That's an important thing to get into, Janine. That's how we are able to see, okay, who is this person? What is their background? What program are we going to enroll them in, and what classes we're going to put them in?
Well, I had already sent my unofficial transcript, and then I had a Zoom meeting with you, just you and I, and then you had said I could do the 6 classes fall, 6 classes spring, be licensed by August.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
Like I said, we're gonna be processing this stuff for the next couple of weeks as we go forward.
Okay.
Like I said, best thing I can come up with classes. It's just to shoot me an email, and Janine and I will figure it out. Telling me, number one, where you are with prerequisites. Even if we've talked about it before, I've got, at any given point, I've got about 130 students, and right now everything is blurring together just because it's bedlam, So shoot me an email saying where you are at the prerequisites, where you are at the funeral home, and what you're looking to do in the fall, if you're looking to go full-time or part-time.
Okay, thank you.
Sure thing. Any other questions?
Yeah. So that handbook that Janine sent out, I never got an email for that.
Oh, really? Okay. Let me do this.
What's that?
Let me do this. I'm going to make a note.
Okay.
I'll ask her to send that out to you. For whatever reason, she has you on the list.
I've gotten emails from her about orientation, but that's about it. I'm looking at it now, and I don't see anything.
Do me a favor. Let's cut out the middleman. Just shoot Janine an email, and she'll respond with it and let you know. And send it over to you. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Sure thing.
Mark? Carla?
Yes.
Okay. So if I understand correctly, I think I have 2 prerequisites to take. So I do have to complete those before I get into the program, right?
Well, just talk to me individually about that. I'll take a look. And
my funeral home offered me an internship, but if I'm going for PA, that internship, I don't have to start officially until I'm finished classes, correct?
Well, when you're in class, we'll register you as a student trainee, or you'll have to register as a student trainee, student/funeral trainee, and then legally that allows you to take part in embalmings and that type of a thing, and all that stuff we'll need for you to be able to do so that you can complete the program.
Okay.
And then when you get out of school, that's when you become a resident intern. Pennsylvania is a little more complicated than New Jersey is in that regard.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure thing. All right.
Should we email you, or can we schedule like a meeting with you for setting up classes?
For setting up classes, shoot me an email. And like I said, just shoot me an email saying, where you are with the prereqs, where you are with the funeral home, and what you're looking to do in the fall. You're looking to go full-time or part-time. And then with that information, and again, I might have this information on our own, but it's at a time of not having to go back and find the file, and then it just makes it cleaner. So, and I'll have Janine send an email out to everybody saying, okay, here's the information we're going to need. She has all your email addresses, and and then once we have that information, then we can schedule you for classes, and Janine will handle all your scheduling. So she handles all of that, and you'll just get a statement from her emailed out to you.
Okay.
All right.
I have a question.
Sure.
So Janine's gonna schedule our classes, so we don't have to go online through Mercer, or?
No, she'll do all of that. We lock down all of the funeral service classes because we don't want somebody to just out of curiosity go, oh, I'm in nursing, let me check out this embalming class. That sounds like fun. So we all down. So we have to put you in anyway. So we'll handle all of that on your account.
Oh, okay.
Right. Any other questions? Okay. What I'm going to do is, like I said, I'm going to reach out to Janine. I'll have her send out a copy of the orientation slides as well, just because there's some information in there and it's good to have. And I'll just look to hear from you guys regarding classes. And like I said, I'll have her send out an email saying, here's what we need you to email us with. And we'll schedule you over the next couple of weeks. And then come September, classes start the day after Labor Day. And I'll see everybody in Zoom. I think if you're in the day program, you'll have me for your first class, which is Intro to Funeral Service. And yeah, I'll see you guys in a couple weeks.
Thank you.
Hey, sure thing.
See you soon.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.